Today we're gonna make apple pie. It's seasoned with lemon and cinnamon and sugar, and it's just perfection. Classic, but delicious. So the first step to making an apple pie is we're going to roll out our pie dough. Now I have two, because I'm gonna make a top and a bottom. This is my foolproof vodka all butter pie crust, which I'll link up there. So we're just gonna roll this out quickly, and we're gonna pre-roll this and let it chill in the refrigerator while we make our filling. Okay. And keep in mind the size of your pie dish and the shape. Obviously we're gonna be putting this into a circle. We're going for, an 1/8 of an inch to a quarter, somewhere between 1/8 and a quarter of an inch. This is a nice thickness, and we are going to place it on our half sheet here. So I'm just gonna lift it up like that, put her down, and then pop it in the fridge. While I'm putting that in there, I grabbed my other dough, and we're gonna roll out our top crust. All right, so same idea, just roll this out to a nice thickness. Keep moving it around so that it does not stick. So we've got a nice thickness here, and we are ready to chill this. So we're just gonna chill this with the other one until we're ready to bake. We are gonna prepare our filling. So I've got about 3 pounds of apples here. These are a variety of apples. I've got Pink Lady and Gala and Fuji and Brayburn. I like to use a variety in my pies, and that way you get kind of a nice, diverse, beautiful kind of round flavor. First step, peel them all. I like to use these wine peelers. They peel so much faster than the other ones. All right, so we've peeled. That's it. And then we just take all of our peelings, wrap them up, toss them. Okay, next step, cutting. So go through, cut everything in half. We're gonna cut it in half. We're gonna cut down just to cut out the core, and we're gonna repeat that with all of them. And then all we're gonna do is slice them. So I want them, I don't want them super fat because then they're not gonna cook fast enough. So, somewhere around 1/8 of an inch, just like the crust apparently. And then we just line it up, slice her down. And also just make sure that they are all pretty much the same thickness. I like to use a big knife for this. It makes it faster if you're using a tiny knife. It's just gonna take longer. And we're done. All right, so reward yourself. And then we're just gonna slide all of our apples into our bowl, okay? It looks like a lot of apples. It is a lot of apples. Nobody wants a pie without a lot of apples in it. So we're ready to mix our filling. I've got my apples sliced and the rest of my ingredients here ready. My mix of apples, not only are they first pick, but they're also just a more tart variety. So I'm gonna be a little bit more generous with my sugar and maybe hold back a little bit on my lemon juice. So that's just how I adjust as I go. We'll mix and then we'll taste and we'll make sure we'll make any final adjustments. So I'm gonna go ahead and zest my lemon. I'm just do one lemon zested. These are really fat lemons, like really large. So this is probably equivalent to like 2 lemons. So I'm not gonna do the whole thing because, wow. All right, slice her in half. All right, go ahead and just get all of that juice. Not only are these large, they were juicy. And we're ready to add our sugar. So I've got granulated sugar here. I'm just gonna start with 1/2 cup. Now I've got my light brown sugar. Get out, come on. All right. And I've got a bit of cinnamon here. I've got Saigon cinnamon. Oh, delightful. I got a teaspoon. It's an aggressive amount of cinnamon. I love cinnamon. If you don't love cinnamon, just don't put it in there. Now all we're gonna do is mix this up. Carefully. And I'm just gonna taste a piece. Okay. Now, little bit more sugar because this is pretty tart, and I just want to make sure that, you know, no love is lost in here. So I'm gonna add about 1/4 cup of granulated white sugar, and then mix that up. So I'm gonna put a little bit of flour in here. Okay, so I'm gonna put about 2 tablespoons in here. Consider it cheap insurance to thicken it, okay? Sometimes different apples have more juice and get a little bit more luscious in there, and you might end up with a syrupy, you know, runny situation. And this is just cheap insurance to make sure that when you cut her into their pie, it's beautiful and everything is delightful. So, just go ahead and stir that up. I'm gonna let this just sit, and some of the sugar will kind of pull some of the moisture out of the apples, and then I will go ahead and line and fill and bake. All right, we are ready to bake our apple pie. So I just pulled my bottom crust that was chilled in the refrigerator, and then I'm gonna put my filling inside, and then I'm gonna grab my top crust. All those nice juices at the bottom. Mound it up in the middle because that will it will shrink down, and then you'll have a nice level pie. So I grabbed my pie crust. I also grabbed some butter. We're just gonna put a couple tablespoons in here, it's gonna add a nice little richness to the filling, okay? Not that there's not enough richness going on in here, but the more the merrier is what I say. We're gonna put our top crust where you would imagine would go, on the top. And then we are going to just kind of assess how much crust there is just hanging out. You don't want too much crust on the sides. You know, you don't want like to have some apples with your crust, right? You know, go around and trim off any extreme excess, if you will. I like to wait until the top crust is on there until I cut the bottom, just because, you know, you don't want to cut it too much or too little or whatever. So anyways, I am gonna roll inside, okay? I want my filling to remain in my pie, and if I roll under, then there's a possibility that it is going to just seep out. Now you don't want that, you want it to seal all up in there, so roll it in, fold it into itself. Okay, I have preheated my oven to 425. We're gonna bake it in there at 425 for about 20 minutes, and then we're gonna turn it down. I like a good crimped crust, okay? Call me old-fashioned, but there's something about it. So I'm gonna go around, I'm being careful not to poke through my top crust, and voila. And the last thing is you wanna poke some holes in the top. You need some vents. You don't wanna know what happens if you forget to put your vents in, so just put your vents in. Don't put them too far down, otherwise your filling will leak out, okay? Okay, so this is optional. You don't have to do this, but I say the more the merrier when it comes to the sugar in the apple pie. So I just take a little bit of heavy cream and I brush it on top of my pie. Now be careful not to use too much or let it pool, otherwise you'll get a soggy crust. You want a soggy crust. You can do all this work to get a soggy crust, yeah? And then you're gonna take this is turbinado sugar, or raw sugar, and you're just gonna sprinkle it all over the top. I am not, stingy with my sanding sugar. I'm gonna pop this in at 425, cook it for about 20 minutes, rotating after 10, and then I am going to reduce the oven to 350 and let it continue to cook. So our pie has been baking for about an hour almost. And you'll notice a few things. So I've kind of tinted the sides, you'll see, because they were starting to get too dark. So I went ahead and I pulled it out quickly. I put some aluminum foil on the edges. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's just so that it kind of shields it just a touch. So I want to check and make sure it's done. So one of the ways you can do that is use a cake tester. And I'm just gonna kind of like poke it through, the top into my filling and see how my filling's doing. If I feel any resistance, then I'm going to pop her back in. So I feel a little resistance, so I'm gonna pop it back in. I'm not gonna put my tenting back up, but I am going to give it maybe like 10 extra minutes. So our apple pie is out of the oven and it smells amazing. We're just gonna wait for it to cool completely before we cut it. It's the moment we've all been waiting for, and I've been so diligent about letting it cool completely, and it is time to cut. Oh my goodness, the top crust is so crispy. Oh, yes. Look at all of these apples. I mean, I can't even describe to you the scene in there. It's like syrupy and cinnamon and just absolute apple decadence. So can't wait to get in here. The apples are still just a little bit crisp and tart, and there's this like cinnamony sugar syrup floating about. Oh, it's divine. Breakfast of champions, am I right?